I think today we'll start seeing if we can fix this Craftsman pile of junk. I don't even know what it is. I got it for free. It's got a 20 horse Briggs in it. I know that much, but I don't know if it's an LT 1000 or 2000 or what the name on it is. I don't know. Not on the hood anywhere that I can see. But I've already kind of looked at it a little bit. As you can see, I got it kind of tore apart and identified pretty much what I need to fix. And the biggest thing is this starter here. You can see the gear is all stripped off, and yeah, she wiggles around a little bit. I don't know what the spec is, but I'm sure it's out of it. So we'll need a starter for it. And while I was looking at that, you see the fuel line's all cracked up, so need fuel line all the way back. And of course, fuel filter, air filter, oil change, spark plugs. They still got the old brown lettering on the Champion, so they've been in there a while. Battery was also dead. We'll have to put another one of those in there. Steering is a little loose, and there's a little gear system down there underneath the battery tray. Have to fix that. And blades are shot, and the belts, the drive belt and the belt for the deck, are both shot. And there's a bracket broken under here. A little sway bar bracket for the deck just snapped off, so I have to replace that. I think that's all this is. I haven't heard it run yet because obviously the starter doesn't work. I'm assuming it runs, I'm assuming it drives, I'm assuming the deck turns at this point, but I think first and foremost we'll get this starter replaced and see if it runs, and then we can move on to the rest of the crap. Oh, and it needs a better hood, I think, because the lens is all busted out of this one and the plastic here is cracked. Luckily, I have another machine with another hood and another starter and another bracket and another steering gear, so I should be able to replace all the kind of big stuff with that, and then we'll get new belts and filters and fuel lines and all that. So let's tear that off. Unfortunately, they've got a bolt underneath the flywheel, so I got to pull the flywheel off to get the starter out. Flywheel is off, starter is out. They put a bolt right there underneath the flywheel, so you can't get to it unless you take the flywheel off. That's just bad engineering if you ask me, but nobody asked me. I'm going to tell you anyway. But we got that out. Let's go out back and see if we can drag this Mower's twin in here and steal the starter out of it, and then get this thing back together and make sure it runs, because I still don't know if it runs. Yeah, it's a little windy out here, but let's see if the old pulling rig will start. Ah, this thing's a beast. Nope, that's PTO. We want choke. There we go. Out here at the Mower stash, and of course the one I want is buried up here. The one with the fancy sock on it, that's the one I'm after. Pretty much the same thing. This one I think is a little older, 19.5 horse, but should have the starter we need in there, and even the bracket we need, and yeah, the steering box is about the same. I don't think I'll swap that out. Maybe I'll look and see if I can get a new one, or just leave it be. But I guess I'll have to drag a couple of machines out of the way to get this one out, and then drag this back to the shop. the deck on this thing. Get some better tires. Keep doing it though. I think we'll be smooth sailing from here. Well, that was easy enough. Got her in here and pulled the starter off. There's a lot of tin work on these things. They weren't thinking when they built them, but got the starter off. Hopefully it's good. Got it on this one. It doesn't flippy flop like the last one did. So I think I'll toss the flywheel back on here and throw a battery in it and see if it cranks. Should. I don't see why it wouldn't. Alright, flywheel is on like Donkey Kong. Battery's in like Flynn. Let's see if this sad sack of scrap metal will fire up for us. I don't know. No key. Where's the key? This piece work. I think. Well, I'd say she runs pretty good, and it moves, and the deck spins, so I think we can go further and finish putting this thing together. Well, now that we know it runs pretty decent, we can continue fixing it. I got the fan and this little shield back on here, but before we get all that excessive tin work back on here, we're going to change out this fuel line because it's cracked up pretty good. I don't know if you can see that on camera when I bend it. Get all them cracks in there, and I can feel underneath where the line runs, and it's got those same cracks in it, so it's all bad. But it runs from this side of the carburetor, or from the carburetor here, around and over and under all this crap, and then up through there, through this hole, and then it runs straight across here, and there's a little clip, and then it goes down, and then it runs along inside the frame underneath, and then back up to the fuel tank. So that should be fun. But yeah, it's cracked everywhere. This thing's just a rolling fire hazard. So we'll take care of that before we get into it too much more. Well, I guess I'll have to drain the tank and then probably take the deck off. Get that out of my way so I can get under there and work on that line. And we got to replace this bracket here anyway. As you can see, it's not doing anything. It should be up there on the frame, so we'll get all that done. Alright, I got my fancy new fuel line in with a new filter and everything all the way back to the tank, and I decided to go ahead and look at the steering while I was here. So I pulled out the battery box and went ahead and took a peek at the gear here, and you can see all that play in it. You've got play between this piece and that piece down there. It's a two-piece deal, so before it moves anything, that wobbles, and then the whole shaft there in the middle, it's got some play in it, and it adds up to a little bit of play before you get anything happening on the wheels. And then of course you got play up front here too, which, you know, is what it is. Kind of wore out. That box there is like $100, so I'm not gonna fix it. I'm just gonna leave it be. It is what it is. It still steers fine. Just got a little bit extra play. Now there was a two-piece shaft in here with a bolt between them. That was loose as well, so that took up some of the play it had, but not all of it. And the other machine back over there, the parts machine, has the same setup, but it's probably worse than this one. So we'll get that get that cleaned out, but we won't fix that. It'll be fine the way it is. And throw the cover back on, the top back on. I've got the deck off. We'll look at that in a little bit. And of course the drive belt, I'll need a new drive belt because that's pretty cracked up. Alright, I got the front part of that hood swapped out. I kept the original tin part because that was better than the other one. And I got some little parts, air filters, spark plugs, that sort of thing. We'll put them in later. Also got it washed up, went to the pressure washer there and cleaned everything up, so that looks halfway decent again. Now what I'm going to do, because I have belts, is I'm probably going to pick up the front end of this thing with my lift and then just tip it on its end like that and do that drive belt in it, and probably service the engine after that because I'm still waiting on blades for it. Alright, I got my new drive belt on. That was pretty easy, just pop it off and pop the new one on. There was no bolts to take out or anything, nothing in the way, and made it really easy when I had it up on its end on that thing. Got that done, got a new air filter in it, new spark plugs, and an oil change, so that's all taken care of. I got the battery on the charger getting charged up, so now we can move on to the deck. Should be pretty straightforward. I got new belt and new blades because this one's pretty chopped up here. Got a bunch of cracks in it and a chunk missing, so put a new belt on it. And blades underneath weren't too happy. They're starting to wear out here on this edge. It won't be long before they go. I've seen worse, but we'll just throw new ones on and be done with it. Looks like they're a wee bit bent as well. We've got quite a bit of gap here, but that's alright. We'll throw new blades on. And I didn't see this before. We'll straighten that bad boy out, get that taken care of, and slap her back on, and this thing will be done. Alright, got the new blades on. And you can see the old blades, how far off they were. One of them's bent pretty good, and that little uplift part of the blade is starting to wear off. Wouldn't be long before that wears a hole in there and flies away. So new blades are on. There's no play in the spindles that I could feel. They sound good when I spin them. I got that thing kind of bent back in place. Looks like it'll clear everything. Everything lines up good, so we'll flip it over, toss the new belt on, and then tuck it back under the machine, and we should be good. Well, I got her all back together, and of course we ran into our first major issue. Cheap Amazon belts. This one a little bit too short, and on this setup it needs to slide here right where this is, so it doesn't really want to do that. And what happens is when the PTO is off, it's still got enough grab on this pulley to keep trying to spin the deck, and you don't want that because then the engine don't always like to turn over and start. So what I ended up doing was I took some bentonite clay I had laying around and I rubbed it on this part of the belt here, kind of worked like baby powder to make it slip, and then fired it up, and then I just went ahead and I turned the deck on and got the belt a little warm. We'll see if I can stretch that belt out. I've got the PTO on right now, and we'll let her sit and see what happens, and then after lunch maybe I'll take it off and we'll try to start it again and do some mowing with it. Hopefully get that belt just to stretch out or wear out just a little bit so that it slides around there. But yeah, it's not the highest quality compared to like an OEM belt, but hopefully we can get it to work. All it needs to do is just get a little bit looser when it first starts, when the deck is off, and then we'll be golden. So hopefully that'll help. We'll give it a try. If it don't work, I'll just have to buy a decent belt that didn't cost 10 bucks. It'll be like 15 or something. Oh well. Well, I figured out my belt issue. Now I ordered a 144/959 belt, and that's what I got. But The actual OEM 144/959 belt is 95.5 inches, and this one appears to be a 1/2 inch by 95 inches, so it's a 1/2 inch shorter than it should be, which wouldn't be a problem if I had an electric PTO, but I have a manual PTO. So when I let that down, I've got it, I guess, stretched out enough so that it'll allow the engine to start. You know, that'll be free, but as soon as you turn the blades on, if you try to turn them off again, the deck just keeps on spinning. So just cheap Chinese crap. So Amazon can eat it, and I'll return this belt, and I'll get one that's 95.5 inches like it should be. So if you're ordering belts, just keep that in mind. Make sure it's 95.5 if you've got the manual PTO. If you got the electronic one, I don't think it matters because that's supposed to be tight all the time. Don't quote me on that, but I'm guessing that's why they thought they could get away with a 1/2 inch shorter belt for these machines. What a difference a 1/2 inch makes. It's nice and loose, which is the way you want it to be when the PTO is off on these ones. And when I tighten it up, or when I engage it, I should say, it tightens right up, spins the blades, and then when I take it off again, the blades come off. So got the right belt this time, 95.5 inches. Good to go. And I think I'm going to take it and blast her off. But other than that, I think it's pretty well done. Got the bagger on here. It was missing some of the little bungees, so I made my own. I think they'll work. Hold that together, and yeah, she's pretty well good to go. I might have to look at the battery. It's kind of slow starting. I don't know if my charger's not working right or if the battery's just that crap, but other than that, she's done.